All right. Well, welcome to Live from my drum room. I'm very excited to have my guest today, a very dear friend for many years and a legend and way overdue to be on this show. And I'm talking about the great Adam Nussbaum. Adam has an incredible resume. It's probably easier to tell you who he hasn't played with than who he has worked with. But just to give you an idea of who Adam's worked with, I mean, truly the who's who in the jazz world. John Scofield, Michael Brecker, Dave Liebman, John Abercrombie, Steve Swallow, Gil Evans, Gary Burton. Besides being just a wonderful musician and drummer, he is equally a wonderful human. I'm so glad that we can have him here today and that I can call him my longtime friend. So please welcome Adam Nussbaum to Live from my drum room.
Ah, cha cha cha.
Ah, cha cha cha. It's good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you. Or as our dear friend Lenny D. Musio used to say, better to be seen than viewed.
Yes, yes. We could do a
Yeah.
whole show on Lennyisms, you know?
What a treasure.
Yeah, yep. Man, so good to see you. How
Nice
are
to
you?
see you.
Yeah, how are you enjoying not being on the road so much these days?
Well, it's funny you should say that because I just came back from 3 days out in St. Paul, and I'm heading down to DC on Thursday, and then going out to the Chicago Drum Show next week. So at least I'm not crossing the pond. So that's a nice thing. And, just grateful to be making good music when I can.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I know we talked on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how much you used to travel. Like how, and I remember, um, like you would be leaving for Europe for like to do like a couple of gigs, right? I mean, those were the days when, I mean, I know the bread was really good and it made sense to do that, but it was such a sort of regular part of your travel, your work was,
Well, I think it's the secret of being with my delightful wife for 40 years is that I was on the road a lot. So when you're home, you appreciate being together.
yeah,
The
no,
reality is, um, unfortunately, being a musician and being somebody involved in the world that I'm in, you have to go out and travel. So you get that gift of being able to play.
yeah,
And I think it was Art Blakey that said, they pay me to travel. They couldn't afford me if they had to pay me to play. Well, the playing is the fun part. That's the gift, the
yeah.
word play. It's fun when it's with the right people. And yeah, it's just the curse that goes with the blessing.
That's yeah, no, amen. I hear you. And and like nowadays it's the traveling situation has changed a lot and that's got to come into like your decision making when you're offered a gig. I'm sure you
Oh yeah.
whereas yeah, it used to be easier to take those gigs, I'm guessing, because the traveling was a lot easier, but yeah.
It's just the climate of the times and the way things are. And I'm also fortunate that the kids are now grown,
Yeah.
and once they're off the payroll, that changes things a bit, so you don't have to be hitting it the same way. And I'm just grateful that they're both doing very well, and that's all you can hope for. That
Yeah.
your kids can manage and be autonomous individuals.
Exactly. Good humans. And you
Yeah.
got two
Oh.
two really great kids. Wow. Look at that shirt.
I know this guy. He's got this thing going on. It's very fantastic.
He sells them out of the back of his car.
So, man, what do you want to talk about today? We could go a million different directions.
I just want to wrap with you. And I thought I used to do this more often. Got a lot of folks watching, a lot of your friends too. I see Milan Goltz and Bob Sidlowski and yeah, old friends, Chris Parker, Just
Oh man, it's lovely that they're all out there. And I must give a shout out to a dear friend who I originally know from Frank Ippolito's on 8th Avenue. Tim Herman. It's his birthday today. So happy
oh,
birthday, Timmy.
oh, Tim, I love Tim. Happy
Yeah,
birthday, Tim. That's
yeah.
great,
Had
man.
to do that.
Fantastic. But
All
I
right.
thought maybe we'd even take a couple of questions from people watching because I used to do that, and then sometimes it gets a little too much to try to do that. But let's just I want to just talk a little bit about your background. I know you started playing pretty young, right? You started playing drums.
Well, my initial instrument that I studied as a child was classical piano. And I studied from the time I was 7 to 12. And I had a wonderful piano teacher. Her name was Katalin Stoppelfeld. She was from Hungary and she had studied when she was young with Bartok. And she was tough, but very loving at the same time, the perfect combination. And the great thing that she did was, besides just learning the instrument, she would bring her students together 2, 3 times a month and we would play
Wow.
together,
Yeah.
where she would have all the little Orff instruments. Somebody might play triangle, I might play the snare drum, somebody else might play the xylophone or the marimba. So we all learned how to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the drums was basically monkey see, monkey do in the beginning, being able to see people play because back at that time, anytime you went out for dinner or be out with your parents or some social event, there was always a band. So as a youngster, I could see people play. I remember specifically growing up in Norwalk, Connecticut, certain people, Nick Catrone, John Catrone, there was a whole bunch of people that played, and they always would encourage, were encouraging when they'd see me watching them and listening. And of course, listening to the radio and just trying to do what you do. And I had a cousin of mine, Peter Gaines, he was 9 years older. And I remember spending a weekend with them when my parents went somewhere. He had a drum set. He was 14, I was 5. He had his blue sparkle Gretsch and put on a stack of 45s. I watched him play and I just
Wow.
did what he did and played along with records and everything and kind of got it together that way. I had no knowledge of rudiments or anything. It was totally looking and listening.
Yeah. That's well, obviously you were a natural. You are a natural. Yeah.
Well, I'm working in spite of my deficiencies.
So I know we've talked about this too. I remember you coming to Zildjian one of the many times you visited and you played some recordings of like when you were a teenager and original music, but like very Jimi Hendrix sounding. And that's when you hit me to the whole Mitch Mitchell influence and how you were, like he was one of your early drum heroes. And
Absolutely. I do regret not being able to meet him in person to just thank him so much for his inspiration. What was it, 1967? So I
yeah,
was 11 years old. I heard Are You Experienced? And that was a life changer for me. And that opened up the door for so much, after hearing that band, you know, it was very funny because my cousin, who turned me on to a lot of stuff, when he first played me a John Coltrane record, Africa Brass, I remember hearing it and thinking, wow, this drummer, he sounds like Mitch Mitchell.
oh, that's okay.
It's like I heard the cart before the horse.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
well, yeah, I had a question. I was going to ask you if Mitch led you to Elvin, like if hearing him,
totally,
yeah, yeah, but
totally.
in a very roundabout way, in the sense that, yeah, you were digging him, and then you heard where he got it from, and you went, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I heard the cart before the horse. And what I loved about Mitch was that the Mitch Jimmy thing was very much like the Elvin and Coltrane thing.
Yeah.
where they just weren't laying down a groove and, playing the beat. They were really dancing. And they had this interactive thing going on where they were both stimulating each other. And I love that because you were more of an equal participant within the creation of what was happening in the music.
Right. Right.
And the great thing about where I grew up in Norwalk, Connecticut, which was just about an hour from New York City. So I was going into New York City, 15, 16 years old and going into clubs, and the people I was hearing on records were accessible. And being able to sit in the room and hear, yeah, there you go. Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, but I know what you're saying, Adam. You were lucky to grow up at a time when all that music was happening like right in front of our eyes, you know? It's
Yeah. And I've always been, we never forget when we're in the room and you have direct contact with something. I mean, the technology is wonderful right now where we can access so much information, but there's nothing like being in the room and feeling it in your body and the vibrations and everything, the way it affects you. It's, all those nights sitting in the corner of the Village Vanguard, literally, within an arm's length of your heroes,
yeah.
had such a deep, profound effect on me. And when somebody like a Mel Lewis or an Elvin Jones or a Roy Haynes sees you there 2 nights in a row and you're drooling, they know that you're a drummer.
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
and they were all so gracious and encouraging. It was so sweet, man. Really, I have just so much gratitude. I've gotten very reflective recently since I've entered the third of this big journey, and I just pinch myself and say, "Wow, I just have so much gratitude." And to
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
also within the industry, and just the whole scene has been something where I just feel really fortunate. I may not have a lot in my pocket, but I feel a lot in my heart and soul
Yeah.
from all the people on the scene. And yeah,
For as long as I've known you, Adam, you've always been just well, I mean, besides being one of the most upbeat, positive people I've ever known, like in every situation, every instance, it's, you can't be on the phone with you for more than 2 minutes without you telling a joke and wanting to make people laugh and doing a funny impersonation of somebody.
oh,
And yeah, I'm just going to say, I got to think that, I know this, that your personality, obviously that comes through in your playing. It's joyful, I mean, your playing is joyful. Freddie Gruber said it himself. Your right hand is a marvel. Is that what he said? Is,
I don't know
but
what anything. It's just taking everything in from different people. You know, it's fascinating. Everything goes in here and in here, and hopefully the things that affect you stay there, and the things that don't go away. And things got to seep into your body, into your soul. It's not just up here. It's got to. I'm
yeah.
hearing a lot of music now. It's too much from the neck up. What happened to the music from the waist down? And let's try to find something in between. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
where it feels good. We have to think about that term when people say play. Play is supposed to be something that's fun.
Mm. Hmm.
I mean, when you were a little kid, you didn't say to your parents, I'm going outside to work. I'm
Right.
going outside to play. And people feel the energy. And I mean, it was documented years ago on a fantastic record, which I'm just going to grab right here because it's right next to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Baby Dodd's talking in drum solos. You know, he talks about, you got to bring the right spirit to the band. You got to bring the right energy, and you have to play for the benefit of the band. And, for those of you that don't know, Baby Dodds was one of the first, along with some people like Zooty Singleton, Paul Barber, and they came up from, back in the day and played with Louis Armstrong. And, those are true words. You have to play for the benefit of the band. Anybody that you have on this show, forget about all the chops and all the stuff they might have. They're playing for the benefit of the music. And that's what
Right.
I've always tried to do. What does the music tell me to play? And how can I help be part of a team? And the acronym I love for team is together, everyone achieves more. And that's something I've tried to do. There's so many drummers out there that have more technique and have phenomenal velocity, but you don't get a gig because you can have all that.
Right.
You know, People hire you because they can trust you to have them feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they feel good, they're going to want you there. That's
Yeah.
it.
And it's amazing how often now we talk about this stuff, Adam. We meaning you and me and other drummers and you and other, drummers and musicians talk about how important feel is. And I think for a long time, probably not, there wasn't enough conversation about that. And to me, you're like the perfect example of that, of like everybody. I was When I introduced you, I just gave a short list of the people you've worked with, which are just the absolute who's who. And you wouldn't work with these guys if you didn't make the music feel great. I mean, Gil Evans and Michael Brecker and John Abercrombie and Steve Swallow and John Schofield. I mean, it's like those cats are not looking for a guy that's going to just blow chops all night. You
That's
know,
not about music.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you don't get a gig because you take a drum solo. I mean, 90% of your job, at least, is being someone to accompany others. And, certain people are going to want things different ways. Some people want you to lay a smooth carpet there, stay out of the way. Some people want to feel challenged, and you have to be smart enough and use your intuition and your sensitivity to the situation to know what's appropriate. And I I've seen it with so many of my heroes, hearing them in different contexts, and the thing they always did was putting the music first.
yeah,
The music is just, music like paper is only information. What you do with it is how you interpret it and bring it to life.
yeah,
I'm the third person in the third aspect. First, there's the music, then there's the others, and then it's how I can get in there. And that's what I'm just trying to do. And then, once, like anything with a great relationship, once people trust you, then you can start to have fun.
yeah, yeah. Well, can you give a couple of quick examples, and then there's some questions I'm going to read to you from folks watching, but maybe a couple of examples how you have to approach different gigs with different artists that you're working for, and maybe play differently, like with how people, what they're looking for when they hire you.
Well, the first thing I try to be aware of is their sound, because the first thing you hear is sound.
Yeah.
You're not going to hear licks, anything until you hear a sound. So, first of all, you got to make sure you can hear them. Now, some situations you might be in may be very loud. Other situations you might be in are very soft. So you have to have enough control to play what's appropriate for, first of all, every room you play in is going to sound different.
Right.
If you're playing Hollywood Bowl, that's going to be a little different than playing at, the Village Vanguard. Are you having monitors? Are you not having monitors? Are you close together? Are you far away? How you can react. I always try to have eye contact with people. I especially like to have eye contact with a bass player when I first play with them
Hmm.
because I want to see where they got the ickety boom going so I can get the spittle of dang, because we've got to be a unified package there. We
Yeah.
frame what a band's about. And then you're going to hear how different people phrase. Everybody's going to phrase differently. Everybody's going to have different articulations. And then I hear how they play. And a lot of times, if the temptation is when you're young, if somebody's playing a lot of notes, you want to play a lot of notes. But it's like, wait a minute, they're already covering that space. So I have to figure out a way that I can react and respond to that, not mimic. I mean, think of having a conversation with somebody where you repeat everything they say.
Right.
So you have to be aware of that. And I think what I do is when I first walk into a room, I'll clap my hands to get a vibe of what's the sound like in the room. And there's a lot of factors that go on. And the more you do it, the less you have to think about the process. But, initially, when you first start doing something, you have to be aware, very aware of what's going on. And the thing I like to say, not word, is don't think, pay attention,
Hmm.
because you got to be able to react and respond fast. And what I think is most important is I like to know what the composition is. I want to know the melody. I want to know the form. And I got to have that internalized because we all know the reality, Johnny. If we're on a gig and something goes wrong, we're the first person they look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to know where things are at. And you got to be able to have things internalized to that point where you don't have to think at all about it. Most songs are going to have a structure. A, whatever. Maybe something's a little longer, a little shorter. That's got to be in here where you don't think about it. Just like somebody says to you, where do you live? Phone number, mother's name, father's name. You don't have to think about it. You know this. And once that's in there, then you can react and respond to what the situation is. I cannot stress enough to drummers to think about the music. Get the music inside you. I'm not saying you have to write out the chord changes, but you got to be able to hear what's happening. You got to be able to hear what's going on. And this is so important because once that's done, then you're free to listen and create.
Right on.
And
Yeah.
these are just things that go on. And this is something that I've always put as my foremost thing to think about. It's not about me, it's about we.
Yeah.
We're part
Yeah.
of a team. And that's the necessary thing. And if you get too caught up in the instrument and it detracts from what the context is, then you just sound, you can hear it when you hear people play. You can hear when they're in the we mode, and then you can also hear when they go into the me mode. And you got to pick your spots. I mean, you get a big drum fill, something. I mean, one of the classic examples ever, Steve Gadd, Asia, right?
Mm.
I mean, he's totally in there. He's totally in the thing. Then when it's time for him to have that fill, cha cha cha, and it just creates such a fantastic dynamic. And the big word I think of a lot is the balance. What's my sonic balance, my rhythmic balance, my balance within the band, the balance within myself? Can I get some bottom on the top of my sound? Can I get some top on the bottom of my sound? All this yin yang thing is
Mm.
going on all the time. And like anything, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. But you have to be aware of this stuff, you know?
That's beautiful, Adam. Man, that's gold. So you,
You got all the gold behind you there, brother.
but you're talking real gold, buddy.
Yeah,
Um,
well, this
so
is why I guess this is why people put up with me.
so and you've been doing this. I mean, you started going on the road as in your early 20s or even before
Yeah.
that, early 20s.
I was working in high school with a band that was like doing 3, 4 nights a week for certain periods of time. And I was always the young guy, for which I'm very grateful because I was playing with people that were better than me and had
Mm.
more experience. So I was getting my ass whooped on a regular basis, and I'm grateful for that. And then, I made I when I got out of high school, I figured let me be within a fertile musical environment, but let me go to school to further my education as a human being.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I went to Emerson College for a year because at that point there was Berkeley and New England Conservatory that
Yeah.
had jazz. There were very few schools that had jazz programs. Maybe North Texas State, Florida, a handful of places in the country. Now it's become a total industry, something else, because it doesn't exist in the community the same way that it used to.
Yeah.
So I went to school up in Boston. I went to Emerson. Of course, first year at school is a big party. I'm getting a 4.0 average. It's too easy. I'm walking around Berkeley. I'm hearing a bunch of people play. I'm playing with some guys. I wasn't really impressed. I said, you know what? I got to get out of here and I got to stop, you know, kidding myself. I'm cursed with the music. So then it was
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm going to go to New York. And so I went to the Davis Center for the Performing Arts, which was a division of City College in New York.
Hmm.
And I did that for 5 semesters, but I was getting far more education from the community and the hood
Yeah.
than I was in the school as far as playing. I was getting some nice theoretical information, but that old like James Brown line, saying it and doing it is two different things. So I was out and about going to sessions all I could. And then, my parents were straight with me. They said, while you go to school, we got your back. But if you go, you split, it's on you. So the summer of 1978, John Schofield called me. This is a crazy story. I knew John from Connecticut when we were kids. He grew up in the adjoining town to me, Wilton, Connecticut, and he was 4 years older. And
Hmm.
I was in a band with a dear friend, Brian McHale, who took lessons with John at the local music store.
Wow.
So I knew John when he played in the Skylark. So we'd lost contact and all that stuff. Then in New York, I met him through some friends. Again, we hooked up. And one thing led to another. He called me, asked me if I wanted to go on tour in the fall of 1978. So I went and I told my parents, I'm going out, I'm going on the road. And they said, you know the deal. And I said, yes, I do. And they said, good luck, all the best. And I didn't know I wasn't going to go back to school, but the phone
Yeah.
kept.
Man.
I've got no paper. I just have the caper. And
Oh,
one thing led to another. And people always say, "How do you get a gig?" And I say, "Have a gig and do a good job. Actions speak louder than words."
yeah.
So
Just jumping back to what you said a couple of minutes ago, and that's a great story. I never heard, all the years I've known you, I'd never heard that that's how it all started for you. But
mm,
going back to the beginning when you said, the importance of listening and all those really important things. When did you feel, I mean, because now I know it's whether you admit it or not, because you're a humble man, it's pretty instinctive for you. It's pretty automatic. When you show up at a gig, you instantly know what to play, what not to play. It's in your DNA now at this point, and it probably
I
was back
hope
then.
so.
Yeah, but when did you feel things start to change or happen, or was there any kind of like light that went off in your head when you were like 25 and you went, or did you just maybe you just knew that young that's what you needed to do. You needed to like just lay back, read the room, know what I have to do, know what I shouldn't
Well,
do.
we always question our abilities, and nobody's going to be harder on yourself than yourself.
Yeah,
And I guess what ended up happening was I ended up feeling that I am getting validated
people are
through the
calling you. Yeah,
people are calling me. I
yeah,
mean, that's validation. When people that you love and admire are calling you, something must be going on.
yeah.
I'm always looking to improve myself. I honestly feel like I'm starting to get to a point, and it really actually pissed me off because when the pandemic hit, I was feeling like, man, I feel like I've gone to another place as far as my perception and my awareness and my understanding of what this process is, which is a continual thing. That's the beauty about music. I mean, I played with people that were in their 80s, Hank Jones, James Moody, Jimmy Heath, people like that. And people would say, but he's old. I'd say, don't even think of messing with
Yeah,
the old cat. I
yeah,
mean,
man.
they forgot more than you will ever know. And to be around these people that had so much together but we're still looking. So it was like the balance of that wisdom from experience, but still being curious. And I love that phrase, the higher you get up the mountain, the more there is to see. And it just keeps
That's
going.
great.
And, I just, I guess it's still a process. I still feel I'm in awe when I'm in company. Like when we did the Freddie Gruber thing, I'm in awe of all these other people, and we're all part of this community.
Yeah,
When you get to have, and there's nothing better when you get the validation of your mentors. That's the greatest. That's worth more than any amount of money in your pocket. When the people you love tell you how much they love you and how well you're doing,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just that's so wonderful.
Well, on just to stay on that point for a second, and I know you're talking generally about, all those great drummers we had a couple of weeks ago talking about Freddie, but earlier you mentioned Mel Lewis, who I know you were very close to. I never had the honor of meeting Mel, but I got to know Elvin really well, and I know you were really close with Elvin, and maybe just talk about what that must have been like to have, like you said, going to the Village Vanguard and seeing these guys, and then you become, peers, really. I mean, you guys are like,
Believe me, they're way higher up the food chain. It's very simple for me because all these people that came before me know them, know me. They built the foundation and they were built upon the people that came before them. And just being, and just to see their, just to feel their energy and, the good spirit from these people. Um, I mean, I only got to meet Buddy one time, and that was through Mel, and that was great.
mhm.
And Mel was very paternal to a lot of us drummers around New York. He didn't have any sons, and there was a whole bunch of us: Kenny Washington, Dennis McCrell, Danny
Danny
Gottlieb.
Gottlieb, yeah.
We Mel was very encouraging, and the other thing was Mel. The first time he saw me play, I was using my old walnut Gretches with old K's, and I had calf head on the snare and the bass drum, and I used to have red hair. So Mel came and I let him sit in on the gig, and I'd always loved his playing, but then getting to know him and just very encouraging. And just hanging out with people and just seeing where they're at as human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? Say, I want a lesson? I mean, I remember when I said to Elvin once, I think I was 16 or something, I said, I'd love to get a lesson. And he goes, well, just come down to the gig. You'll get plenty of a lesson right there. Just listen.
Yeah, man.
Listen and watch. And, he was very, just, he was something else. And, geez, there's so many different stories of different situations. And, I'll show you a sweet picture. We ended up splitting it. I was playing with a band that he worked in the late 70s, the George Gruntz Concert Jazz Band. This was a Swiss band leader. He put together international big bands. He somehow had a friend that got a lot of funding through Swiss Bank and stuff like that. So they
Nice.
had some
Yeah.
Brit. So he'd bring people together from all around the world, put bands together. So Elvin did it in, 78. I then did it in 84 and 91. And then we ended up doing a big gig in Berlin, and I'm playing the gig, and then Elvin's a guest to play too.
Wow.
So he's kind of like the proud daddy seeing his little, I'll show you a sweet picture.
Oh man. Yeah, look at that.
And yeah, he was I gotta give shouts out to so many people, that when I first got to New York, there was people that aren't even that well known. The great drummer Eddie Moore, Harold White, Philip Wilson. These were people on the scene. Billy Higgins, Al Foster, who was such
Oh yeah. Yeah.
a mensch to me. Billy Hart, um, Eddie Gladden, Leo Mitchell. People that you may not have heard of that are kind of under the radar, but were on the scene. I mean, and then certain teachers that I had when I started to get serious, there was Joe Cazares, who's still alive and well.
Yeah.
Um, Charlie Persip, who I was with for a while, and I had formal lessons with these people, and
Yeah.
this was good for me, because I mean I didn't even know what rudiments were until I was around 15 or 16. I didn't even know. I was just playing by monkey
Yeah.
see. And it
But
was
you
like I wanted to understand some of what the legitimate literature was of the instrument,
yeah.
which was, I never did drum corps. Like I said, there's a lot of things a lot of holes in my development along the way that I don't have. I mean, I did play in a youth symphony for a while. There's so many different things, and it's just far out. It just feels like yesterday I was that kid, and that's like 50 years ago.
Oh man, it's such an organic, natural approach. That's what I think everybody hears in your playing is it's so like you say, it's not rudimental, and I mean that in the nicest. I don't mean to diss anybody who has all that background because that's fantastic, but you hear
Amen.
yeah, you hear this earthy, organic music when you
I
play.
mean,
It's
for me, I think it was because I initially came to the drums for music. I didn't come to music from the drums. And something I've always thought about, anybody you hear that plays a melody or harmony instrument, they are supposed to have a responsibility to playing the right changes, play the right
yeah,
scales on the chord. Now, you can hear somebody play absolutely correct, the right notes. But if they don't have time and a sound, everything can be totally correct and sound terrible. Then you can get somebody who's not playing the changes. They might be jiving and shucking here and there, but they got great time and a great vibe. It's going to get over.
yeah,
Now, that's the melody harmony people. So, me as a drummer, being primarily a rhythmic interpreter, I'm always trying to think about melodies. That way you're connecting to what the music is.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's
Yeah.
just what your point of view is about things. And then what I've tried to do is like, doing exercises instead of just running through a book with exercises. I'll think of melodies and I'll think of different sticking patterns and accent melodies. So I'm working on music, not just working on licks.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And everybody has licks, man, because if you're uninspired, you got to go into your pocket sometime and you'll pull out some. If I do something, it's like if somebody goes, "Oh, that's a really cool lick." It's like, yeah, I was completely uninspired. I had to go into the trick bag.
And you've had those gigs where the music's not you're not feeling it, and I was going to ask you that question too, and you have to kind of reach for something
You
else
got to
to.
bring it, man. You
Yeah.
got to bring it. You can't let the situation pull you down. You got to maintain. I got to drop a wonderful story I heard. It's really saved me. I'm sure you got questions too, so we
Yeah.
should get to that. But this
That's
is a
okay.
great story. Louis Armstrong, who was probably the founder of popular music, know him, know anything,
Mm-hmm.
period. Um, he was on a gig once as a guest with a band that was god awful. And he went up there and he played his ass off. And another great trumpet player was there, Bobby Hackett, beautiful trumpet player. And Bobby went up to Louis. He goes, "Pops, you sounded great. How could you do it with those cats up there?" And he said it in his, like, "Well, Bobby, his whole thing. When I go up on the stand, there's two bands." And he goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "There's the band on the stand, and then there's the band in my head. And depending what the band on the stand sounds like, I can either turn up or turn down the band in my head." And Bobby goes,
Man.
"How incredible." And then a few hours later, he sees Louis again. He goes, "Pops, Pops, I forgot to ask you, who's in your band?" He goes, "Gotta get your own band." That has saved my ass, man.
Oh, oh, that's beautiful. That is
But
beautiful.
we have to, it's like you got to keep the boat afloat, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Amen,
what are
brother.
some questions,
Okay,
man?
yeah. So from our good friend Anthony Cusina, longtime watcher and listener. Good to see you out there, Anthony. Adam, when did you notice your fluidity in your playing? Is it something you picked up from Freddie Gruber or something else? Could you elaborate?
I
Always
think
good
it was
question.
something I always aspired to. Um, when I think of the word feel, I think of the word flow, and I just think of like there's no corners in the body. Uh, Another dear friend of mine, Warren Oates, great drummer,
Yeah.
he used to say to me, "You can't have any herky jerky."
Yeah.
And I've been inspired by visual things. My father was a graphic artist. I was inspired by things that way. I was also inspired by things in nature. You know, when you see a
Hmm.
wave doesn't go like this. There's always a flow to it. When you watch a great dancer, you know,
Right.
I love watching figure skating.
Yeah.
I love when you see a snake, that kind of fluidity. I always tried to get that because something that I remember from the great Ed Soph, one of the great teachers out there, who's really been able to articulate a lot of what this process is. Your sound is a product of your motion. It's a physical instrument. So if you want to have a smooth sound, you better have a smooth motion. And something else I always realized is as time goes on, and something that Freddie really was a master at being able to observe and articulate was, your motion. you have to learn to let things, not just muscle things. You know, you drop a ball, it wants to bounce. You got to let it. You got to let the, everybody talks about finger control, stick control. You got to let your fingers move the stick. You also got to let the stick move the fingers. So it's that
Right.
whole
Yeah.
thing, learning how to do that. And I'll say that once I started to get more into the brushes, I realized when you play brushes, you play the space between the beats, and you have to be aware of that. And that helped me become more aware of that space when I'm playing with the sticks,
Hmm.
because that space also helps to give you an understanding of the width of the beat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people say to me, "Oh, yeah, man, we like your beat. You got a wide beat."
Yeah.
And the other thing is that happens is many people equate concentration with tension. And the whole thing is, how relaxed can you be and still focused at the same time? It's all that yin yang thing,
Yeah.
balance, that big word again.
Yeah. That's no, that's and you mentioning brushwork is a great segue to the next question from Rich Farrago.
Uh-huh.
Adam, your brushwork is amazing. What or who inspired you to develop your brush technique?
Everyone I ever saw. And because everybody does it different. And I'm just trying to do it in the easiest, simplest way to generate the sonic result that I'm looking for. I mean, there's all crazy choreography. You know, it's amazing when you watch different drummers play brushes because everybody does it different.
Yeah.
And you have to find out what feels comfortable for you. And initially, when you do something, it's not going to be easy. It might be difficult. That's because it's new. Once you do something, a lot of times it won't be new. And it's like, oh, you just do it. Don't think, just do it.
Yeah. Oh, it's great words of wisdom. And I
I
know there
mean,
would be. Yeah.
you're trying to generate. The whole thing is when you're playing brushes, you want to try to generate the time flow through your lateral circular motion, not just, using them like sticks. So the brush thing helped my stick playing for sure
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't use a comb. I just use brushes.
All right, I'm gonna
I had to
hit you.
throw that one in there.
Bada boom, bada ba. I'm gonna give you one more question from our pal David Ossickinen, great drummer with the Hooters,
Oh yeah.
Philadelphia
Hey
boy.
David. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for the record, brother.
All right. And I think he asked this question because he also studied with Joe Cusatis, but he said to ask you about your lessons with Joe Cusatis.
Joe, I will say this. Joe was incredible as far as learning me to develop my fluidity around the instrument. Because Joe had phenomenal facility.
Hmm.
And Joe's whole thing was we're playing a drum set. We're not just playing snare drum. And you have to learn how to develop that fluency around the instrument. And he did two great books, Rhythmic Patterns for the Drum Set and Rudimental Patterns for the Drum Set. And it was all about learning how to move around the instrument. And I remember a few lessons with Joe. I'm watching him demonstrate this stuff. I thought he was going to levitate because he was like a helicopter,
Wow.
and it was incredible. And that includes seeing people like Buddy and Billy Cobham and Dennis Chambers. I saw Joe a bunch of times. It was like incredible. And Joe is still alive and well out there in Florida. Joe,
Yeah.
much love to you.
God
And
bless him.
I got to say that it was fascinating because I remember I was playing a gig somewhere and somebody came up and he goes, "You took lessons with Joe Cazares, didn't you?" I go, "Maybe." I go, "Why do you ask that?" He goes, "The way you move around the instrument." So I give a lot of that to Joe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And He also helped me do some things with my reading. Even Joe used to say to me, you don't read that great, but you got a good feel, man. And he just helped me work on some of my deficiencies. I
Yeah.
hear much better than I see. I wish I could be a better reader, but I don't
Do
get
you,
hired because I can read.
okay. Well, I was going to ask you, that's never been a problem for you though. I mean, you read well enough that when someone gives you a chart, you can do it, but people aren't hiring you to read
I'm not.
charts, I'm
I
guessing.
wouldn't say I'm a first take sight reading master like a whole bunch of people I know that can like read anything. Somebody would say, as the fly's leaving his mess on the paper, they're reading it. I'm not that great. I mean, I got good at knowing how to interpret
Yeah.
charts. I mean, really, you think about it, drum charts are just a guide. And I'm sure all you the drummers out there will agree. Sometimes we get charts that give us just what we need. And then it's up, we're getting hired because what we're bringing to it.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out how to do it. And it's fascinating to hear different drummers interpret the same charts. Just like when you hear a classical orchestra and you hear different conductors conducting the same music, how they're extracting different aspects of what it is, what to play, what not to play. These are all the things. The way Buddy might do it would be different than how Mel would do it, different than Persip, different than Erskine, Don Lemon, Shadow Wilson, Gene Krupa, Louis Bellson. Everybody's going to interpret it differently. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. That's great. And another great question I'm going to throw your way from Mark Dalzell. I hope I pronounced that right. Dalzell. Adam,
Okay.
your time playing with Michael Brecker is legendary. When you think of those days, what first comes to mind? That's a good question. Michael Brecker.
Well, first of all, I felt very glad to be there. I was I was thrilled to be there. It was a lot of fun. Michael was a sweetheart, very humble, very self-effacing. Loved the drums, played quite good drums himself, and
I've
it
heard
was
that.
it
Yeah.
was an exciting time actually too because Mike had been such a presence on the scene for a long time, and he had never done his own record. And I think he was in his mid late 30s when he did that first album with I think it was Matheny, Kenny Kirkland, Charlie Hayden, and DeJohnette. And I went up to Michael when I saw him play with Steps one time at the Bottom Line. I'd known Michael from the scene in New York. And I remember saying to Michael, I said, "Hey, man, I heard you did your first record." He goes, "Yeah, about time, huh?" I said, "Listen, man, if you put a band together, I'd be down." And there's a whole other crazy story, but I basically auditioned for the gig, and he auditioned quite a few other wonderful drummers, but I guess I gave it to him the way he liked it.
Yeah. I'll
I
bet
mean,
you.
I heard a
Yeah, I
great
think you
line.
did.
It's like, you could be in a room and you could see five beautiful women. One might have the face, one might have the shape, one might have the this, one might have that. But who are you going to be with? The one that you feel best with.
Yeah.
So
Right on.
somehow I was giving it to Michael the way he liked it. And he wanted to, because when you think of a lot of the stuff, you think of the Brecker Brothers thing. But Michael still wanted to play jazz. And for me, a lot of people were surprised when they heard me, rocking out with that band too. Because they go, "Oh man, we didn't know you did that." I go, "It's all part of my DNA, baby." I grew up with James Brown and Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles and all that too. So that was all in there. But New York is brutal, man. They want to compartmentalize you. Oh, you do this. You're a downtown guy. You're a pop guy. You're a Latin guy. You're a funk guy. You're this guy. You're that guy. We all have a lot more to us than how people generally like to pigeonhole you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
So, but Michael, it was a lot of fun. We had a good time. Oh, jeez.
That's the that That's the Mitch Nussbaum era right there.
I wish I still had that snare drum, man. I bought it from my drum teacher in Norwalk, Tony Churko. It was a 2.5 by 13 Rogers skinny drum.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a really like is it a piccolo technically or just
It
a
didn't even have lugs. It was just like a cast shell where the tension rod screwed right into a ring that was in part of the shell. And that's my old buddy Brian McHale playing guitar. And
yeah.
at my friend Pete Hodgson's house in New Canaan, Connecticut, we actually did some recordings there. My friend Pete sent me some recordings from when I was 14.
Was that the stuff that you played me that time when you came, or that was
I
maybe later?
and something else later on when I did that record with a guy that I sat in with a blues band. Oh yeah, I got some other stuff. It's like it wasn't career ending.
I'm going to play a Michael Brecker tune in a minute. I want to just read you one more question from Carlos
Sure.
Guzman, and
Oh,
another.
Carlos, hey man.
Yeah, Los, our buddy Los. He's asking Adam, when appearing at multiple drummer shows like the recent Hitcore Big Band show, how do you focus on sounding like you instead of being influenced by how other drummers are sounding? By the way, you sounded great at the show, and you are a sweetheart to hang with. Wow, Los is the best.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. Um, I think what I realized when we were all together for that event, and I was really thrilled to be asked to be part of it. You know, you had Peter there, you had Peter Erskine, Jeff Hamilton, Russ Miller. Oh, I'm forgetting people, you know, my single cell amnesia. I realize, you know, we are all at this point now. We're not children anymore, okay? We all spin the web differently. And I
Yeah,
realized all I can do is do what I do the best I can do it and just hope that I can bring it. That's it. So, I mean, and the other thing was for me, which is kind of interesting because I was not familiar, which is another one. I'll admit my ignorance here. I wasn't really that familiar with Buddy playing those charts. And
mm,
the charts that we played were influenced by the charts that Buddy had done on those tunes. So I didn't have that in my head to try to aim towards. I just kind of had to go to it with my own point of view.
right,
So
right.
in that case, I think it may have been good that I didn't know. Because if I did, it's like, I can't do it like that. Who could? Right?
Right, right.
We all have to spin it as best we can. And that's and it was really the hang was really sweet, man, with all of us together. It was
I'll bet. Yeah,
really a nice time. And the same thing when there was the big Zildjian 400th anniversary. It was
yeah.
just sweet to be included and to get to hang out with people that I'd heard of but didn't know. And you know, when drummers get together, it's different than like trumpet players or guitar players. It's like we're all part of what helps a band sound good, you know? There's another great Art Blakey line. We can make you and we can break you.
Absolutely.
We all, you know, we all get together and you know, it's not like we're young and you know, there's not that competitive thing anymore.
No,
We're all
no.
part of this community. And amen for that. And we're part of a special tribe.
Yeah.
And
I know. I know. We're so blessed, man. And I'm glad you mentioned, I had a note here to mention that you're playing at the Zildjian 400th anniversary party last September was just fantastic, just so beautiful. It was you. It was
oh,
just, it was only you that could bring that the way you did.
well, you know, I saw everybody else who was playing there and everyone played fantastic. I figured, well, let me do something with brushes first because I don't know if anybody else will. And then let it grow to something else and let's just
Yeah.
have some fun. And you know, since I was doing it as a tribute to Peter Erskine, Peter and I both had a lot of time playing with John Abercrombie, who was such a great musician and such a great guy. I wanted to do one of John's tunes, as tribute to him because he was
Yeah,
such a singular voice on the instrument. And it's
absolutely.
funny, man. It's funny, to be moving on in age because so many of my people have gone to that big bandstand now. So
Yeah,
they've only left the building. They're alive and well right here.
right on. Oh, I just want to read this comment from Chris Parker, but you stood out from all the rest at the Zildjian thing. Sounded great, totally yourself, beautiful. Thank you, Chris. That's exactly
Thank
right.
you, Chris. I mean, Chris, woohoo!
Yeah, Chris Parker. I know, man.
Used to
Well,
see him up at McKell's playing with stuff.
yeah,
I remember one night I came in, Eric Clapton sitting in with the band up there. There's like 12 people in the club. I mean, stuff was like the world's greatest living jukebox.
right on.
Because they were
Yeah,
playing all those, and people would be going up to McKell's to sit in. Dad might be playing one night, Chris, Joe Cocker'd be in there one night. And because I used to come with my friends down from Connecticut, we go to the Vanguard, then driving back home, we'd always stop at McKell's uptown.
wow.
And that was a great hang. And yeah, that was fantastic. Chris, fantastic.
Yeah.
I just appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
What a time, man. What a scene, to be able to do that, just yeah.
Well, I think that we grew up pre DJ,
Yeah.
and there are some incredible DJs that I've heard out there who were able to mix and put things together in a phenomenal way. And that's another thing. But for a young musician, you got to hear it live, man. You got to hear it. You know, you got to
Yeah.
be in the room, man. It burns into the whole thing.
I agree. I agree. There's an energy that you can get energy from recordings from great music, but it's a whole different thing when you're in the room,
I
few
mean,
feet away from the guys.
yeah, I have to stay PG, but I could bring up a lot of X-rated points as well.
Uh, all right. Well, how about if I play I thought I'd play this song because all the years I've known you, you've always mentioned Suspone. And and I thought I'd play Suspone by Michael Brecker.
Sure, that was fun. That was fun. I have to say the thing that a lot of people said to me was, man, I don't pay any. I used to practice switching from brushes to sticks and sticks to brushes. And somebody said, did you guys do an edit or something there? I said, no. I just, I haven't heard it in a long time. So, as you like.
Yeah. No, but I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a thing that a lot of you cats learned to do, like that was, I mean, I don't know how many people are doing, well, people are still doing that today, but that was definitely, like even session guys like Andy Newmark and Jim Gordon, yeah, from sticks to brushes, brushes to sticks and
Jim Gordon,
seamlessly.
man. I That was another wonderful drummer.
Yeah.
Incredible. I
Yeah.
remember hearing him with Delaney and Bonnie at Wallman Rink in Central Park, $2
Wow.
to go see them. And he was playing with Delaney and Bonnie. And Clapton wasn't there that day, but Dwayne Allman was playing with them.
Wow.
I mean, there was stuff like that. It was great.
Yeah, I know. Talk
What a
about
pocket, what a force he had. And, there's another one where, genius and crazy
yeah,
do a very fine dance. I mean, he's not the only one that's
right.
had issues. We could make all three.
All right. Well, let's get a little Susponi here.
Ronzoni.
I love it. All right. You're breaking out all the classics today, Adam. I love it. Oh man.
That sounds pretty good, man.
That sounds man, that sounds fresh and timeless to me.
Well, listen, man, it's basically I Got Rhythm Changes. That's all that tune is. And it was Mike Stern's little line on rhythm changes. There's a million melodies on I Got Rhythm.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was one of them. That
Well,
was a
that
that was it was a fun time.
and I bet anybody that is watching this right now would agree with me that you don't even realize you've changed from brushes to sticks. At least I mean, it happens so seamlessly, like that. All of a
In the
sudden,
right spot, man. It was like I
yeah,
think when the tenor hit, it was like, all right, let's
yeah,
shift gears. And what I really also noticed too was when Joey started the piano solo, Jeff pedaled, which also created another nice tension.
yeah, yeah,
And the whole thing is, you want music to be an adventure. You don't want it to just lay in the same place, same way all the time. You know what I mean? I can get a little bit of, suspone if I was going to say that. You know what I mean?
Oh man. Well, before we wrap it up, I do want to mention for anybody who doesn't know this already that besides being one of the greatest drummers on the planet, you're also the co-host of Drummer Nation with our friend Michael Vosbine.
Been
And
fun, yeah.
yeah, and it's great. I've watched a bunch of the shows, and I know the most recent one I think had Billy Cobham as a guest.
Right, right.
Man,
And that was great. And I think we're planning to do a part two. He's got a 80th birthday coming up,
right on. Yeah,
which is going to be something. And
he looks amazing,
I,
man. He's
oh,
wow.
I mean, what
Yeah,
a phenom. Yeah, he's something else, man. And I'm also trying to. I did one with Steve Swallow, one of the great bass players and one of my mentors and heroes who I learned so much from. And I think it's important. Drummers got to realize the importance of having a good bass player. And for me, as a young drummer, one of the great experiences was many of my great experiences was playing with great bass players.
yeah, yep,
That helped me get my thing together. Drummers don't play generally with drummers. We play with bass players. We got to understand that relationship. That's very important. And vice versa for
yeah,
young bass players, experienced drummer. It's like there's a student that I've had who's in his early 20s now. He's going to do some gig with the bass player Gene Perla, who's now 84 and playing still like Thor. I said to this drummer, I said, this is one of the best lessons you're going to ever get playing with him.
yeah, man.
So it's all part of the process.
I think I'm gonna my goal now, Adam, is to basically have every drummer in the world on my show. So
Well, all I can say is I'm happy to have been able to do your show. And if you can, try to get whoever of the oldest guys are left first.
yeah, yep,
So we have some of, this oral history, which is fantastic that you are doing this because we need to leave something. I mean,
amen.
I
Yeah,
keep thinking one of the reasons I wanted to do that brush DVD that I did along with Steve Smith was that, right after we did it, I mean, Joe Morello passed away. The only one left now is Billy Hart.
yeah,
It should
yeah,
have been done 50, 60 years ago when you could have gotten Shelly Manne, Papa Joe, Philly Joe, the real masters of doing it. So it's important. I mean, this music for me, it's popular music is relatively young music. And it's not like classical music where you need to go back 400 or 500 years and study repertoire. You got a little over 100 years, and you got to be aware that certain elements are never going to change. Having a good sound, having good time, that's
hmm
irregardless of the genre that you're in.
right.
And just to understand that we're all built on the shoulders of the people that came before us. And we have to try to maintain a tradition and try to carry on. I mean, I find it funny now. I was always the kid. Now I'm on gigs. I'm the old guy. And it's like, I feel a responsibility to pay forward what I've been grateful to receive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's very important. And, drummers, get your instrument together, but get the music together too. The people that play the best hear the best. And if you do that and you can subjugate your own ego, people are going to want you there. I mean, you got to have ego to sit on the throne. I mean, come on, kings and queens sit on the throne. Doesn't
Right
mean
on.
you want to be a tyrant. Got to try to take care of your band,
Yeah.
bring the good
Yeah.
spirit. So, man, I
Wise words.
thank you for having me here. We could probably go all day, but there
And
we
all
go.
night. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you so much, Adam. We'll do this again. We'll do this
yeah.
again,
Have
brother.
a toddy for the body.
Absolutely. You as well. I'll put a link in this episode when it's up on YouTube to Drummer Nation for anybody that hasn't
Cool.
checked that out. And it's a great series that Michael Vosbein
Yeah,
does on.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
be a part of it when I can, and
Yeah.
he's doing a good thing, and we just got to keep it alive, man. Keep the music alive, and remember when you're out there, have a lot of gratitude. Watch the attitude. And
All right.
actions speak louder than words. So there we go, and may the quarter note prevail.
Yeah. All right. Adam Nussbaum. Big hand for Adam, everybody. Hey, everybody. John DeChristopher here. And I want to thank you for watching and listening to Live from My Drum Room. I started this show in April of 2020, and it's now 4 years and almost 200 episodes later. And I'm excited to tell you about my new Live from My Drum Room t-shirts. In fact, I'm wearing one right now. Made of 60% cotton, 40% polyester, a really soft cotton blend. I'm wearing a size medium, and you can have yours for $25, including shipping in the contiguous US. I will give you my Venmo information, which I'll also include in the description. There's my Venmo information, and you can email me at livefrommydrumroom@gmail.com with any questions, and that will also be in the description. So get your shirt while they last. They're available in extra small to double XL. So once again, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for subscribing, and don't forget to pick up your Live from My Drum Room t-shirt. See you soon. And remember, no drummers are harmed on any show. All right, well, that's my show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. And the podcast is available on all the podcast platforms, so download it. And remember, no drummers are ever harmed on Live from My Drum Room or Track Talk. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. All right. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again real soon. See ya.